Three, two, one. All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back. Today I got family member Jake Baird. So Jake is a former, a former amateur boxer, and he has boxed with some pretty crazy people. He's got a lot of history and background in the sport, and he's taken it to a level that a lot of people never take it to. So I thought it'd be really cool to kind of sit down with him, uh, get some basics on boxing and basics on throwing a punch, and get his perspective on a lot of stuff. I know a lot of my jiu-jitsu people who pay attention to me will like this and kind of learn from him, and hopefully do some more stuff in the future. So, Jake, if you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction, kind of history, and go from there.
So I've been boxing for about 24 years. I only had 5 amateur fights, but I spent a good part of 8 years in fight camps with pros like Willie Monroe, Push-Up Frazier, the Brinson brothers, and Russell Jordan for like a solid year. All guys who have been up there. So some guys fought for titles against some big names like Sergio Martinez and Felix Sturm. And now I train, I coach boxing, and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, and where do you train now, or where do you train out of now, I guess?
I'm training at LAKO in Eagle Rock, California.
Cool. And what's the transition been like from, training for boxing to coaching or training people for boxing? Like going yourself through the process and then now taking people through that process.
It's not that different. It's kind of harder to train yourself because you got to keep yourself motivated all the time. Coaching, it's taking everything that I know that I should do and just and then just leaving it up to them to decide how far they want to push it. So for my end, coaching is kind of easier than training was.
I love coaching.
It's really easier than fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I love coaching, and you're not getting hit in the head, right? So it's a lot easier. So I guess one of the main things I want to talk about, because I'm a big fight fan, and like I'm a huge I guess not advocate of fighting, but like an advocate of learning a martial art or learning, basic self-defense and learning from people who know what they're talking about. Because a lot of people think they know how to throw a punch, and a lot of people, fighting is one of those weird things that anybody can do, but being good at it and efficient at it is another thing. So I guess kind of my next question is, what are the foundations of a good punch, and what are the kind of key mechanics we're looking for there? And, where would someone start with that when looking to do that?
Okay, so first, let's say that human beings are built to fight. Like everything that we do in boxing, every movement you make goes right into the next move. It gets you set up for the next movement if you're doing it right, right? So your body will tell you if you're doing something wrong. So I'm gonna stand up and demonstrate. So I'm not gonna go over like how you hold your hands and everything and your feet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over where we want our balance, basically, right? So we're up in our stance, and you'll see a lot of people, they like to bounce around a lot, right? Which is, you don't need to do that. What you really need when you're throwing combinations is you want to be down here like this, right? So your normal stance is up like this, but when you're getting ready to throw punches, you want to be down here. One, because all your power is just like swinging a baseball bat, right? Your hips are where the power comes from. It's not your arms, right? So you want to be nice and strong down here, nice and strong down here, because when you're throwing punches, you want to be able to get that torque, right? Everything that we're doing down here. So that's where it starts. Right here, we're up, moving around. You get in here, ready to throw your punches. You're going to drop down a couple inches, right? And then turn. Now, I don't know if you can see from here, but turning into a punch, right? So you're turning, you're flicking your hips, and you're letting the hand follow after it, right? So we're flicking the hips, letting this come into it, and then you can see my shoulders back here are cocked and ready to go. You're just gonna flick your hips back the other way, come across like that, right? And you want to turn on your toes with every punch. So again, your body's working, every part of your body is working in unison with the other punch. Boom, 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 boom. And again, like I said, if you're doing it wrong, your body's gonna tell you. Like if you don't turn on, can't say it, but if you don't turn on your front toe when you're throwing a hook, you're gonna feel the pullback all the way down to your ankle, right? So, and the hook will stop like right here because your body's telling you you're not doing it right. So, if you want the hook to be able to come all the way across like this, turn on your toe, and that's really the most important thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, you know, that's one thing I've learned because I've dabbled in it myself, but I've never been like, well, I have worked with somebody, but you know, throwing a punch isn't about your arms. It's mostly about your hips, and it's about creating power through your hips and kind of utilizing your lower body to create that torque and just unload on somebody. And it's not so much of like this, it's hips. And then your arm, like you said, your fist is coming after you're going through that. So like that whole process of, you know, creating a solid punch and, you know, I know I've heard landing is harder than obviously the hardest part of boxing. So, you know, after you get to throw a punch, it's learning how to land it, but like having the mechanics and knowing how to efficiently do that is going to be huge. So, you know, with that, what has been the biggest thing on your end so you went from training to, you know, working with some pretty high end athletes and then transitioning from athlete to coach. So you've been through the training process, and not only in terms of boxing, but in terms of like staying in shape and getting in shape, and then now getting people in shape. What, like, as in terms of fitness, because that's, you know, my expertise, what do you see as the biggest needs, and then the biggest, you know, the things that people need to work on the most, I guess?
The interns. I mean, people, they lose their wind real quick, right? Like unless they're a marathon runner or something, someone comes in from weightlifting, especially into boxing, they'll be able to throw punches for 20 seconds and then they're dead, right? That's it. So it's, again, conditioning the muscles in your arms, right? Getting your wind up, just endurance is the biggest thing to start with, because if you can't keep it going, you're not going to finish a workout. You're not going to get what you're supposed to get out of it. Definitely endurance, right?
And speaking of endurance, you know, what is, you know, does that look like, you know, for someone like yourself? Did that look like running? Did that look like, you know, bike? Did that look like, what did that look like endurance wise?
So for me, first, disclaimer, I would not recommend this. If anyone that I have ever trained watches this, and if any of my coaches happen to see this ever, I'm sorry, but I never ran. I used to lie to my coach all the time, right? I'm supposed to be running, you know, 2-3 miles every day.
Uh-huh.
I would always go in, coach would be like, do you run? You do your road work? Yeah, always. But and it's really important. You should run all the time, right? All the time. Keep your heart rate up all the time. But the way that I did it, because of the way that I fought, I threw a lot of power punches, a lot of heavy power punches. My whole thing was going to the body, right? And so what I did was I would do my work on the heavy bag. Like, say I was doing 8 rounds, I would usually have 2 rounds out of that 8 where the whole 3 minutes I would just go hard power shots. So at the very least, it's like if I'm running out of steam and if I can't breathe the way that I'm supposed to because I haven't been running, I know that my arms will be able to do that work as, you know, as efficiently as they should be. So again, I wouldn't recommend that. You should run and jump rope. Those are the 2 most important things, because I did do my jump rope and all that. And I noticed that when I started jump roping at the end of every training session, my endurance started to go up. And I got leaner. It kept me when I was fighting at my fighting weight, I went down from about 156 to 152 and was able to hold it around there just with the jump roping for 3 rounds at the end of training session.
Mm-hmm.
Jump roping, running, you should do all the time. But bag work, definitely, like, you know, make sure that you're moving your arms. Throw those punches, throw a lot of punches. They don't all have to be hard.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people get, you know, they get, I don't know if confused is the right word, but like they try to throw too much power every single punch. So.
And you don't. So fitness-wise, it'll get you in great shape if you're just throwing power punches. It will. But if you are serious about knowing how fighters do it, the way that you win fights is by changing speeds, and you know what I mean. Not keeping.
Well, it's almost setting up your punch.
Right. Because if you throw 100% all the time, someone's going to be able to time your speed, right? So you want to change it up every now and then. Touch, then come with something hard, then come with something fat. You know what I mean?
And like
practice that on the bag. Get used to it.
Yeah, and like even like I said, the best fighters that I've seen, just from watching, obviously, and like, you know, they never, you know, like even someone who everybody's probably seen is Conor McGregor, and like when he's, you know, he's never just throwing power punch. He's like tap, and then he's coming with the left hand. Or if you're watching, like, you know, maybe Mike Tyson was the only one who's ever thrown 99% power punches, but like none of these guys who are winning championships and like Floyd, even watching Floyd is like, you know, he's just hitting you. He's just constantly hitting you, just landing punches. And like in boxing, those add up. And then, you know, towards the later rounds, you're going to catch someone with one of those big punches, and that's when you're going to win. But also that's why the endurance is there. That's why you need to be able to move, and you need to be able to do it for a long period of time. And, you know, it's like I said, it's from what I've learned from jiu-jitsu so far and what I've seen from boxing is it's a massive just chess game where you're setting up your closing move, whether it's a punch or a submission or something of that nature. You're working to set up something down the line, and everything before that is a step in the right direction for that. And, you know, you obviously have more experience because you've been in, you know, I've done a jiu-jitsu competition, but like being in a fight is a little bit of a different situation. Have you seen that, you know, play out and be like, all right, like I was looking for this and this is how I did it?
Yeah. I was not good at it. Like my first 5 years boxing, I was the typical Irish fighter where I went in, took 20 punches to land 2 hard ones. Right. And, guys like Push-Up Frazier and Willie Monroe, and especially Russell Jordan, guys that knew tricks of the trade and were a little more calm and knew they didn't have to throw, 100% all the time, would catch me. They would let me do certain things, and I thought that I had them, and then I would get myself into a trap. Mm-hmm. Now, like when I'm sparring, even some of the other trainers at the gym, I have the boxing part of it. I have the mind games down. Long after it's worth anything because I don't fight anymore. Mm-hmm. But it happened to me. It happened. And that's why the endurance is so important. Because I mean, I'm sitting here wailing on guys. I know I can punch. You know, there's a thing I had. I could punch hard. These guys were letting me feel like I was getting to them for 5-6 rounds, and then all of a sudden, I do the same thing that I've been doing, thinking that I'm going to land something, and pop, I get popped. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, not cool that you got popped, but it's cool that like, you know, you go through that process and see what it's like, especially against guys like that who are, you know, there's a reason why they're at the top of their game is when they see that stuff and they're, you know, you don't get that type of feedback, I guess, from anybody else where it's round 6 and you're like, all right, I got this, and you're boom, you're like, I don't got this. And again, like I've never obviously.
Boxing is a very hard thing to learn if you're not actually doing it. It's like one of the things where you kind of have to do it to learn it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's one of the things that I enjoy about it the most. But like again, I'm just watching, so it's a different scenario. So in terms of, you know, training people now, how do you incorporate, you know, making it a workout and differing it from, I guess, training for boxing? Like, what are the, you know, obviously there's going to be skill components to training for boxing, but looking at like a client comes in, they're like, hey, I just want to get in shape first. Hey, I want to go, you know, fight somebody? Like, what are the differences there, and how do you kind of incorporate fitness within that?
Well, one of the things that people know me for, and I think that all of my clients have come to expect from me, and the reason they keep coming back is because I tell everyone first day, I'm going to train you like we are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
One, because this is going to get you in shape, you know, and you're going to learn a little something along the way.
Yeah.
To get in shape regardless, right? So why am I, if you've come to a boxing gym to learn boxing to get in shape, why not learn the boxing the right way, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get in shape either way. So I approach all my clients as if they're all training for an amateur fight.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's different. The people that say they actually want to fight, I'm a little harder on them. I let less mistakes go, like on the bag, going backward, or hitting the mitts, as opposed to someone who's they're just trained to get in shape. As long as they're putting in the work and they're sweating hard, their form is good enough. I'll let it go. But I train everyone as though they're going to fight.
Cool. That's awesome. You know, with me, I haven't worked directly with fighters, but you know, like I said, I've been in jiu-jitsu and working more and more and talking to people like you about it. You know, I see lots of stuff that I kind of can't wait to work with somebody on, because there's a lot of from my end, I know there's a lot to offer in terms of mixing, because I think in general and this happens a lot with athletes, because they're good, like they're so good at what they do that the other stuff kind of falls to the side unless they need it or someone, you know, actually tells them. But like in boxing, there's almost a void between kind of like training, like strength training, and then boxing. But there's, you know, in terms of like, you know, keeping yourself healthy, it's, you know, even like when I've talked to you before, is like you stayed in shape by, you know, you didn't touch dumbbells or kettlebells ever. It was just body weight stuff. And I mean, I don't know for 100%, but like I would assume that's more common than it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's more common that people are not touching that stuff than they are. And, you know, for me, I guess talking to someone like yourself is building that relationship and trying to get people to understand that, you know, using that stuff correctly is going to only enhance, you know, enhance people's ability to do more. Not saying that it's necessary, but, you know, learning how to, you know, control your scapula, learning how to strengthen the scapula, learning how to rotate the hips, create rotation in the hips, create internal rotation in the hips. When you're throwing that punch, you know, that's all internal rotation. That's all internal rotation on the left side. When you're throwing the punch, this right here, you know, we're internally rotating the shoulder. So having strength there and being able to create that range of motion to throw this punch, because if you don't have, you know, if you can't internally rotate your shoulder, your punch isn't going to be as good, and you're also not going to be able to land correctly. Whereas you want, obviously, wherever you're supposed to hit, you're going to want that to hit. You know, speaking of in terms of creating that power, the more internal rotation that you can create, the more power you're going to create. Stability of the hip, stability of the shoulder, just because a lot of times, every time we throw a punch, our hand is leaving the center of our body. So our stability is just, it's losing it. So as we start to leave, the shoulder starts to, you know, lose its position a little bit more. So learning how to be able to properly bring it back and bring it back into that position to create more power is just going to be, you know, it's things like that we're going to put boxers like yourself and then boxers in the future in a position. And I think you see it more and more because, you know, boxers are lasting longer and longer, whether that's because of head stuff or, you know, just overall injuries. I think that athletes in general are lasting longer. Like Tom Brady's lasting till he's 42. LeBron's going to play till he's 40. Floyd is still fighting and he's 40. And like Mike Tyson's going to come back. It's like, you know, all this stuff is going to, you know, is happening because people are better understanding the body and they're finding a way to merge everything. Whereas before, I think it was, you know, boxers are good at boxing. So you got a boxing coach who did boxing stuff. And then, you know, if you were lucky enough or had the money to find someone who knew the strength training side of things, you maybe did some of that stuff. But other than that, you're just doing push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups and all that stuff. And then just doing what you can. You know, so having someone like yourself who's experienced in the field and now kind of merging fitness and boxing is really cool. And you see it a lot of places, but like, you know, a lot of those people don't come from the background you do. A lot of people just run a boxing class to run a boxing class. And like, you know, coming from a background where you're fighting like top tier fighters, people who are fighting for championships, and it's the same thing, you know, like the people you named are the same as, you know, any other sport. You look at the top of that level, like they're equal in skill and dedication to their sport. That is, you know, a soccer, baseball, basketball player. So, you know, I think it's cool. And I think it's a good thing to kind of mix, because I think fighting's something that everyone should learn how to do. You know, I think they should all be competent enough to correctly throw a punch and also defend themselves if they need to. And then, you know, just keep yourself healthy, because like I said, a lot of that stuff, you know, jiu-jitsu is something that as I said, I've been doing, and some of the people in there are just beat to shit because they don't do anything else except jiu-jitsu, and they're just constantly just you know, abusing movements, abusing like push-ups, or abusing kind of like rotation that they don't have or they haven't earned, essentially. So like letting these people in on, you know, do these little things. And again, it's not big things, you know, and like you said yourself, like this isn't, I'm not saying like you have to power lift to be a good boxer. I'm just saying like learning a little bit more about the body, learning more about rotation, learning more about explosiveness, power, and learning about that stuff and how to utilize it and, you know, make your body better. It's just going to make a completely different boxer and then a completely different workout. And I'm sure you know, from experience, you've probably seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I did nothing but calisthenics when I trained. But I've put a lot that I've learned so far just training beyond just the calisthenics. Like a big thing that I have a lot of my clients who are atlas swings with the kettlebell. Like kettlebells are huge, especially because what I demonstrated earlier.
Sitting.
Punches. So you want sustained strength to be able to be down here low all the time, but you still got to have that explosiveness there to come back in. And that's where like kettlebells, those swings, like that's strengthening those areas. So yeah, I wish I knew some of this stuff when I was fighting.
Yeah,
it definitely useful.
Yeah, and I think that and looking back at it, I think that your skill of boxing, you know, is probably, it would have been a little bit better just because of, you know, there's probably some days that you needed that little bit of extra stability, or you needed that little bit of extra strength, or like maybe that little bit of extra mobility in the shoulder would have, you know, and that's looking back and nitpicking, but like, you know, those little inches, and, you know, it's the same thing with any sport. Inches make a difference. And like you hitting 2 inches below the chin because you don't have the external or the internal rotation to make a punch, as opposed to square on the jaw, like, you know, that's a knockout versus a missed punch and you get knocked out, you know? So like those little details and being able to control certain areas are just, you know, it's huge. And like I said, it's make or break for some of these guys. So, you know, and like I said, you being in that role, it's, you know, it's important to see both sides. And like I said, a lot of people never been in a fight, or they've never been into that, you know, they've never taken it into that step where they're fighting against world champions. Like I said, there's probably been people that you fought against that, like you said, they know what's going on. They're just waiting for it. And then they just boom, boom, and they just toy with you. And like, you don't get that fighting some people. So like that is, you know, that's an unmatched experience that you're delivering to your clients essentially. So I guess one of my last questions is, last couple is favorite boxer of all time. And then, you know, who, I guess, your favorite aspect of boxing.
Man, my favorite boxer of all time. I don't know, man.
I guess favorite one to watch. Doesn't have to be like favorite one. Favorite.
So boxer. My favorite boxer ever is Floyd Mayweather. But like my favorite guy in boxing is Mike Tyson.
Okay. Cool.
Because he was a destructive force, and I love that. I love the dominance. I love, you know, the intimidation factor. My favorite aspect of boxing, I just there's a confidence that you get when you know that you can defend yourself, at least.
Yeah.
For me, I was a kid, like I got picked on a lot. I never thought I could fight, and then when I started boxing, and people were like, "Oh man, he can hit hard." And the first time I knocked someone out, I was like, I can do anything. I can like I'll talk to whatever like girls I was afraid to talk to. I can do physics now. Like it gave me a confidence. Like, I could do anything because I could punch.
Yeah.
And like I said at the beginning, human beings, we're designed to do this. You know, like we don't have time to go into it more, but like everything I was talking about earlier about how our body works together and your body will tell you if you're doing it wrong. Everything done properly, you can almost tell like our bodies are designed to block punches, move away from punches, and land punches. And I just think we should all do it.
Yeah, we can. We'll do this again. We'll figure something out so we can go a little bit more in depth, because I definitely have some more questions to ask. And like I said, I love talking about this stuff. Where can people find you if they're looking for that type of stuff, and where can they reach out if they have any questions?
Best place would be Instagram right now. I'm redoing everything, so
okay.
But I mean, find me there. The easiest place probably.
What's the Instagram?
It's Jake _ Baird.
Okay. Cool, and I'll leave that below. I'll put the kind of links and everything there. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions about that stuff, like I said, I'd like to do this again, and if maybe we can do a little bit like a boxing Q&A instead of like kind of just like a podcast. But if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Jake. Any last minute things you gotta say, Jake? Anything?
No, man. Let's get it.
Cool. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Those of you who listened. And if you have any questions, like I said, reach out. You know where I'm at. And we'll talk to you guys soon. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.